Hi, all listener, and welcome to this episode today. I have been invited Viktor Sághy. Welcome, Viktor.
It's great to have you here. Thank you for having me.
Viktor, you come from Scotland, Glasgow.
Yes, that's where I live. I'm originally from Hungary, so if you're wondering about the accent, it's that's where it's from. I live 12, 13 years now in Scotland.
Okay. And you are a coach in Scotland.
Correct.
Yeah, and also a mentor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and we came across each other on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
And decided to have a meeting, and then we decided to have this conversation here in my channel. And I read a book because I got a challenge. You gave me a challenge to read a book, and I read this, and it's this book about Melissa Ford. And when I read it, I found a topic to this episode today, and it's to see challenges as a part of the game called life.
Mm.
So I want to start from that topic, and that's how our conversation started from. So, yeah, Viktor, you can start to tell the listener about why you wanted me to read that book.
Mm. Of course, and first of all, I just really want to acknowledge you and what you do here in service for everyone. Like you shared your story with me, and I was deeply moved by it. I think everyone should hear your stories because stories communicate the best. Like we have, as a human species, we created through stories, and that's something that also we can talk more about. Like it does connect to how we are being with our challenges and everything. And so I really want to acknowledge you for bringing the full yourself with all of your challenges. Like if you haven't heard Cecilia's story, definitely ask her about it, look it up. If you are a regular listener, I'm sure you heard it, but there are a lot of challenges there in your story, and I resonate with that too myself. And I think the reason why our stories of challenges are so important because everyone resonates with that. When you shared about yours, I could relate to, although I haven't gone through myself, it brought us back to our shared human nature, that we all share the same earth, we all share the same game called life, right? And the reason I shared that book with you is because I think, we are coaches, so that book written for coaches, but I would say if you're willing to look beyond that, it's written for everyone, not just coaches, because the title of the book is Living Service. How can we live as service in our life? And if you have a business, the application is straightforward. The more we serve, the more successful our business will get. The more we embody service, the more successful our business will get. But that goes beyond of that. How are we being with our partner? How are we being with our kids? How are we being with our friends and people around us? Are we being in service? If not, not a problem, but what would be different if we would be, right? Living service is a way of being, and that's the wonderful conversation that we've been having with Cecilia around that. And the other powerful part of the book is that it shares Melissa Ford shares her story of challenges as well. And we just talked before this, before we hit the record button, we talked about like how it has been a healing journey. And for Cecilia, she is reading it, is a healing journey of reading it. It's like there is crying and anger and relating to it and hope and excitement and all the mixtures of these feelings, because we relate to those stories, because we relate to someone being in challenges and we understand how it is to be there. And so I think there is one sentence that is very healing when we talk about challenges, is to simply say from one human being to another that you are not alone, that you are not alone. And that's a place of arrival. And from that place of arrival, there is so much hope for growing from that place of challenge. There is so much hope opens from that. So the very first thing I want to say is that you are not alone. And I know that this conversation will go beyond that. But before we would talk about like how to overcome or anything like that, I think, and I think this conversation is specifically not about the overcoming. This that will come from arrival. This conversation is about arriving at where we are, where we are. And there is a powerful thing in arrival. I'm happy to talk more about it if the conversation goes there. But that's what I wanted to say, that you are not alone.
Thank you so much, Viktor. That's beautiful, beautiful words for everyone to hear. I think a lot of people need to hear that. You are not alone. And I thought about when I asked you, what do you want me to say? Are you a coach? Are you a mentor? Or what do you want to have like a title? And I find it a little difficult to know what to say by myself, because I'm not any title. I just want to talk from heart to people and bring them back to see that what I have seen, that I got this power inside of me, the light and all the challenges that I have been going through. I did it because I found that power in myself. So yeah, I can call myself a coach, and you too, but it's really, the message is to talk from heart to heart, from soul to soul, to this is not an intellectual conversation. We don't want put people up in the head and like they have heard this before, because it's all about you. You who is listening to this, to come back to you. You listen, you hear something inside of you that you need to hear.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's very important to acknowledge that it's one thing what we say here. We can say very good words, we can say average words or not so good words, but the power is really in the listener. The power is in you, listener, in this case, right? The power is always in you, the listener. Power is in the listener. How are you listening to this? Because if I'm having a conversation, for example, with a relative of mine, and if I'm listening this relative, like everything he is saying is is not good, if I'm having a clue, or I heard it before, I've known it before, I know this, if that's how I'm listening, I'm not gonna hear the gold. It's not gonna be useful for me. They still say the same word, but now if I bring a different type of listening, now if I bring the type of listening when I'm listening from my heart, when I'm listening from the place, what is it in this for me? How can I relate to this? How can I capitalize in this? We really make the decision before we having a conversation, before we listening internally, unconsciously, we make a decision whether that conversation will be good for us or not. And that will define if it will be actually good for us. So what I'm getting from what you shared, Cecilia, is to have an invitation that to decide that this conversation will be, if you want, life-changing for you. Because it's not the words we say, it's really how you listen. And even understanding that one truth in your life right now and bringing it into your relationships can completely transform if you would listen to your wife with that, like Buddha listening, or that Christ listening, or that Sydney Banks listening, or that whatever, whoever is the person you would want to, if you would bring that listening into every part of your life, every relationships, your relationships would transform. So I think like that's a really good lesson that you kind of I feel prompted, and I kind of riffed off of that, if you don't mind, because like that really can amplify the value of this conversation today.
I'm sorry, the internet is
How 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 bad, how good it is? Could, like, can the listeners hear me? Like, can you hear me? Hmm. Okay.
sorry, the internet is it's not good.
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, okay, so what would you like to do?
We continue, we see.
Okay, good.
We see if we can continue.
Is it good
Yeah.
enough? Is it like working well and yeah? Okay, good. Mm. So, where would you like to continue, Cecilia?
Um, sorry.
Okay. So I think we can just come back to the title, because that
Yeah.
title is always such a great path. So the title is to see the challenges as part of the game called life. And what comes up to me when I'm saying that, to see challenges as part of the game called life, is what happens when we don't see it as part of the game called life. I think that's a really good point to think about. Like, it happens to all of us when we don't see challenges as part of the game of life. And what happens when we don't see it as part of the game of life?
The mood goes down and it won't be clear in our head. It's all these messy thoughts is just standing in the way, and you can't see, and that's, and if you can understand that sometimes I don't know, and maybe I have to just leave it there. If I got these challenges, which we always got a lot of, to just recognize that I'm comfortable now, and I can't see it clearly. But it's not going to stay in this way all my life. It's going to shift and to change, and it's the way of living life that you trust that whatever challenging you got, it's always going to move, and you're going to get an answer, even if it's not that kind of answer that you like. So it's not always it's like that, but you've gone through this life so far, and so far it had in some way worked, and you know that you can handle life. It's a trust that it's also here and now the same. From now you can also meet your challenger in life, even if it doesn't feel like that. And it doesn't for me. Sometimes it doesn't. We talked about that when I have challenging about not reaching out to support people like I want to, because I'm talking from a place that I have touched. It's not something that I have read in a book that do like this. I have gone through things that I can share to people. Challenger in life. Like you said, listen to someone's story of something in life that you've gone through and you overcome it. You are not in that space anymore. It have moved, and I can share about that, and I can put people in a safe space where we can talk about all these feelings.
Mm, mm, that's beautiful. And what's two two things coming up for me. I will start with one of them because I cannot talk twice at the same time. So the first thing is that I think we underestimate how much life takes care of us. We tend to underestimate. So when we have challenges, and all of us have those moments when we really don't see that, like, we are in our challenges, and it seems like it's gonna be like this forever. Like this is the worst, and it's gonna be like this forever. Um, and we tend to underestimate our own resilience. The very fact that we are here today, you touched on that, the very fact that we are here today means that we have gone through everything that have happened to us. Everything, all the hardships we have gone through. That's the very fact that we can go through so many things, that we have a resilience. And if I would lose all my money, if I would lose my house, if I would lose my job, if I would lose my hands, you know, if I would lose my ability to speak, life would still take care of me. And so we underestimate that. I have a client who have had severe panic attacks. And the thing about panic attacks, it's a really good learning, because it's not just about panic attack, it's about fear in general and how we often see and perceive things. So the thing about panic attack, that it's not panic attack about the thing. It's not panic attack about small space. It's not panic attack about a situation. It seems like, but it's not really. It's panic attack that I'm about to get a panic attack. It's 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 the fear of having that experience and the fear that I'm not going to be able to. What if I'm not going to be able to go through it? What if I'm going to die while I'm having a panic attack? That's what people are having a panic attack about. And it seems like that they are having a panic attack because of small space or a lot of people or of a situation. But actually, then it's a panic attack about the fear of the fear of the imagined future that what if I'm not going to be able to go through this? And we had this conversation with that client of how much resilience is in all of us, that in this very moment, if I'm getting heart palpitations and short breath and heat flushes and dizziness, and it seems like the world is like closing in around me, in that moment I am actually fine. I can experience all of this and I can be fine while I'm experiencing it. And that shift of coming back to the moment and giving myself permission to experience, to be in the challenge, not trying to change it, not trying to change the challenge, just be in the challenge, has immense resilience in it, has immense resilience in it. So if I'm having challenges, just the ability to simply be, and often what gets us out of it is forgetting that it's part of the game called life. We want to change it. We want to make it be different. I don't know if it was Sydney Banks, George Pransky, or whoever said it, but it was brilliant that the whole world would change if people wouldn't be afraid of their experience. The whole world would change if people wouldn't be afraid of their experience. So I think what we talk about today, that you are not alone. It's okay. We all go through challenges. It doesn't make you less or more or anything. It is part of this thing called human life. And if we are just not afraid of having those experiences, actually we can go through them and heal, or we can come out of them so much easier, because what gets us kept in it is that we don't want it to be. So that kind of like, it's a cosmic joke. It's a cosmic joke that we don't want to be in the experience, and us not wanting to be in the experience is what keeps us in the experience. So when we accept, when we are in it, when we are present, when we are mindful, when we are grounded, when we are just here, when we just let it happen, when we just be in it, actually that arrival, that surrender, that being in it, what taps into our innate resilience. And someone can go through like a panic attack, or someone can go through a challenge. Sometimes I feel like I have the most amazing life and everything is good. I'm great. Everything is good. The next day I wake up, something happens, or just I didn't have a good sleep. I feel like I have a crappy life. I'm not good. I'm not this. I'm not that. What really changed? Nothing. From yesterday to today, what have changed in my life? Nothing. But I feel completely different. So is it true? Is it true, or am I just feeling different? And sometimes all I need is just be with it. This is what it is right now. Likely what happens the next day, I sleep on it, my mood changes, maybe something else happens, I feel upbeat. It's just the up and down of life. And simply accept, arrive to that, has immense resilience in it.
This is so helpful, what you say, Viktor. It's so helpful because I often hear in the Three Principles community and a lot of posts out on LinkedIn, on Instagram, that if you know this, it's over. Then you don't panic more. You are not struggle. You don't feel things from the outside. It's just it's just a thought, and that's not what I share. That it's just that before I had a lot of panic attacks. I have lived with a lot of panic attacks, and I didn't know how to help myself. I didn't know who is experiences this. I didn't know that I could handle it. And now when I know that this is just fluctuating, this is something that kept it came over me like a storm, and today it doesn't feel comfortable, and I got this panic sometimes, but today I know that I'm guided, that I can be with it, but that doesn't mean that I like it, or I'm not feeling afraid of it, or sometimes I can't help myself in that way that I want, but I have it's a deeper trust that this is going to end. It's not going to be like this for that long time, and I can go through that too. I have gone through so many things, so I can go through this too. And that's very helpful. But don't think that you need to have positive thoughts, because if the negative is just the thought, the positive is also just the thought. It's the same thought. So I have to go through both the negative feelings and the positive. It's just the life. Life is like that, like the weather outside. I always compare with the weather. I like to do that because that's easier to know that what can you do about the weather?
Nothing. Yeah. And that's also a really good point. So one of the thing what as 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 I st as people started, but I can talk about my experience, but I see it on. No, let's not just talk about my experience, because I've seen this, that when people get introduced into uh yeah, this is interesting. This is gonna be good. I just made a connection right here. So when people get into the three principles understanding, they start to see it as a technique. I saw it as a technique. So if I feel bad, there is this thing I read or heard or whatever, I'm gonna use that onto my bad feelings and I'm gonna change it. Nothing wrong with that. You know, it's how our experience deepens. There is a stage that usually people uh, understand or try to understand the three principles, but that's not that. There is a deeper way to look into this direction, and it's we often say look into this direction for a reason. So when we want to apply it as a technique, see that it's the mind, it's the ego. The ego always wants control. The ego always wants control over trust, because when we don't know and we need to trust, that's very uncertain and very unsafe to the ego, right? Being with what is requires a certain level of trust. right? Trusting that I'm going to be okay. That's more a heart-centered way of being. Fixing things is more of an ego way of being. It's more of a control. It's more of changing things, because there is no safety in this. There is no safety in just being with what is. But actually, like, that's when we up in our head. That's when we up in our head. And you know, all we need is to slow down. Sometimes I use meditation. Sometimes I just acknowledge that I'm sped up, and that helps me slowing down. Sometimes I take a couple of deep breaths. Sometimes I'm just sped up, and that's it. But simply acknowledging, I can, even if a little bit more, come back to my heart and to just know I don't need to have control. And there is actually immense power again in trust. Immense power in letting go control. Is just the mind, that talking voice inside of our head, keeps telling that that's not good enough, because the mind always wants control, and that voice inside of our head have the tendency to say that we need to know how the future gonna be. We need to figure out the solution to this problem. We need to have confidence. We need to have certain feelings to do action. We need to figure out and fix this. That's what the internal voice tends to tell us. But there is another place which I like to call my heart, or tapping into our heart, which where things just flow. It's a part of us. It's a way of being. You know, if you want to be scientific, there is a really good book called The Fast Brain, Slow Brain, which talks about the slow brain, that kind of voice thinking part. The fast brain is more the intuitive subconscious part of us. Maybe it's that. I don't know. I just refer to it as my heart, because when sometimes I literally place my hands to my heart, and that helps me to get to that place. Simply that, simply feeling my heart. And there, all I get trust and all the things that come with it: acceptance, forgiveness, intuition, knowing what's right, just taking the next step, calmness. All of these things just come from that simple fact that I put my two hands on my heart, and I came from up here down to here. There is something, a somatic connection in that, and we have known it since the beginnings of humankind, that we can do that. And something in that location, it's simply, if we put our two hands on our heart, if we take a couple of deep breaths, we can slow down. We can slow down, and we can just trust in what is. And sometimes that's all we need when there is storm all around us, is just to trust in what is. Trust that we gonna be okay, right? And often from that arrival, from that silence, from that slowing down, solution comes. Or just something, an intuition comes. It's not something that we figured out. It's just like a muse. It just pops up out of nowhere. And that's that type of operation. That's what we talk about here. And that's what I'm getting as well, what you shared around, like, you know, often when we look at these three principles, we kind of like want to apply a positive thinking on it. That can work. It can work. When I'm thinking positive, I'm feeling more positive. But the problem with that is that often when we use it as with the intention that we want to fix the thing, there is the underlying suffering. And we know that. I'm trying to think positive, but underneath there is a non-acceptance of it.
Mm. Yeah, if you don't feel positive inside, it's hurting more. It's hurting more to say that, yeah, but it's just a thought. I need to be positive here. So that's a beautiful sharing, Viktor. Heart to heart. I love to meet people from heart and to talk to people. And this is the living. It's not something you just can do in a coaching session, 60 minutes you need to come from that place, to meet all your family and your and everyone from that place, and from that trust that when you meet another person, you know that person can also come back to who they are behind all this chaotic mess in life. And sometimes we can't help when we can't see. We are up in our head ourselves, but if we know deeply that it's nothing wrong with the people I meet, not deep down, it's not, but they are up in something, up in their feelings, up in their thinking, and I can touch the heart. And I know that, and nowadays I know that I can touch it more easier if I stay a little more quiet with a person that are up, very stressed. If I can just be a little more quiet and not going in this stress together with that person.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, yeah, there is like the way we are being, if as you say, if you are slowed down inside, like a radio station, you help others to slow down as well. You radiate that way of being, the slow downness, that groundedness. That's why often when you get around people who are really embodying a spiritual practice, who really embodying an understanding, sorry, then you start to slow down. You start to feel and resonate with them, and your thinking starts to slow down. And so that's another thing I find, like, it has completely transformed my life. Like, if you want to change your partner, for example, one, know that you can't. I saved you a lot of time. You can't. The other thing is, it's kind of a trick answer, because at the same time you can, but you can't change your partner by will. You can only change yourself, and that will have an effect on others. So for example, if I'm coming from a loving place, simply that, if I'm coming from a loving place, if I'm coming from an honest, open place, and the best times to come from a loving place is in the midst of an argument, right? If I think that my wife is wrong and I'm right, where am I being? I'm being up in my head, aren't I? And so often I feel this thing, you are so wrong. Like, I just want to, like, really say that thing there, right? And then I take a breath, drop into my heart. It's not worth it. And actually, in that arrival to to my heart, I start to see, like, actually, she is right. I start to, my mind, my heart starts to open, and I start to see that I haven't seen before, that she is actually right. I see her view, and suddenly I open, suddenly I acknowledge the way she's seeing it. I might still not agree with it, but I can acknowledge her point, and we start to have an honest, open discussion about it. And that completely transformed my relationship. And I used to be a person who was chronically afraid of confrontation. So I couldn't hold an argument. And that itself, now we have so constructive conversations, arguments, however you want to call it, with my wife, that through that uncomfortable conversations, we got through so many things, worked through so many things, that our relationship improved so much. And so it all comes back to, again, like when you with someone, like just think about the practical application, is to simply go down to your heart, slow down, open up. And so the only way you can change anyone is you changing yourself. And if you think you're going to change yourself so you can change others, again, you ended up in the trap, because it doesn't work that way. So we really can't change anyone. But that's an interesting thing, that the way we are being does have a huge effect on the world around us.
And we got thousands thoughts in our head, but we don't need to act on them. Even if I feel all in a argue, I feel like I wanted to say this and that, and you are and to just know that the other one doesn't know what I have, what my thoughts are in my head. So I don't need to tell them all this stuff, and I don't need to act on them, because words can also be very bad to put out to other people. Even if you can say in the three principles world that it doesn't matter what people say to you, because it's only if you think about it in that way you react. But I feel like it matters. In my way, I feel like it matters what you say to people. You need to be kind, and if you can't be kind, it's better to be quiet. It's my opinion, because I react when people are not kind to me, even if I understand it from my thoughts.
You are absolutely right. I don't know what's with my throat. Sorry about that. I will mute
If I
myself,
could give you
do the
this
proper.
this medicine here in
Yeah, please put into the microphone.
Ekerol.
Squeeze it through.
I know how it can be. That's why I have put it here on my table.
Yeah, you see,
It's okay,
you
Viktor.
are well seasoned in this, and I'm
Tell your
learning.
wife to bring some water to you.
It's okay. Do I have? It's okay.
Yeah.
I did it now. So yeah, um, where were we then? I just
Yeah,
lost
we were
track of
where
thought.
we react. If I said that
Yeah, the words.
if you get triggered from the
Mhm.
outside, I can see that even if I know that it's my thoughts, I still care about when people say things to me. And when they say bad things, I get triggered or react on it, even
Mm.
if it's my thoughts. So we need to be kind to each other. So it's better to be quiet.
Mm.
It's my opinion. It's better to be quiet if you don't have something uh, uh, good to say.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's another misunderstanding, in my opinion, in sometimes in the three principles community is, and again, I'm aware that I'm rudely generalizing here, um, that thoughts are not powerful. Like thoughts are, they are just thoughts. The way I see it is that thoughts, it's a paradox. Two things can be true at the same time. Thoughts are the least powerful and the most powerful things at the same time. Everything that exists, everything is made out of thoughts. our story made out of thoughts, how we behave made out of thoughts. This computer is conceptualized by someone thinking via thoughts, communicating via thoughts, people exchanging thoughts over decades, and people accumulating knowledge through thoughts, and words are the most powerful ways to convey thoughts. They almost synonymous with thoughts. Not quite, but almost. It's the closest. So the things that we say has huge power. And what differentiates between if a thought is powerful or powerless is the meaning we give to it. The meaning, the importance we give to it decides. That what glues an insignificant thought into our mind and makes it significant and powerful. Now, here's the thing. Once so that's why the 3 principles is not a technique, it's an understanding. It's understanding how the engine works. If I'm working with cars, it's a really good idea for me to understand how the engine works. The deeper I understand how the engine works, the more I can work with cars, or let's say computers. Like, the more I understand how a computer works, the better I can work with it. It's an understanding. 3 principles is the same thing. So once we understand that thoughts are the least and the most powerful thing, and what defines is the importance, the meaning we give to it, we not just can be more resilient, but we also can be, so to speak, magicians. We can also be creators. We can become aware how we create our thoughts, and we can create unkind things with our thoughts, what we say to people, and we can create kind things with our thoughts. When I'm having a conversation with someone, I can create that person as a bad person through my thoughts and my words, or I can create that person as a good person. And guess what? That person just a little bit will become that. Our words have immense power to create the world and people around us. And as we see that, we can literally create the word into what we want, or create more and more into what we want. So that's a really interesting point as well. Even in a conversation, if I'm unkind, it's not nothing. I put those words out. I created something with my unkindness. And by me simply knowing, by the awareness, now I have a choice. Do I want to be unkind, or do I want to be kind? I can do both. What do I choose?
And that's a relationship we got, a relationship to others, and also a relationship to yourself. That if you are unkind, I was very unkind to myself, very kind, and I still are sometimes very hard on myself, and that is also the story you're talking about. I create a story about myself, that you are this and that, and in my head I think that that everyone are looking at me like I'm looking at me. So it starts to be my truth about myself, my reality. And that's
Exactly.
why it is so important to start listening, because I was very up in my head and I only heard my thoughts about me, and I had to stop this woo in my head and start to just listen deeply to something like you did with your wife. Start listen to what's her point in this, what she's telling me now. It's not just what I believe and what I think, and because it's so true for me, but maybe it's not. It's just a belief. It's something that I have created. So that can be difficult because then you have to know that you are not your thoughts.
Exactly.
Thoughts is just energy moving, moving. And I thought that I was my thought. I'm this. I know I'm this, but I didn't know. It's clear for me now that I didn't know that I was this. So you can think that you get diagnosis and that you are that person that panic all the time. But I'm not panic all the time anymore.
Yeah, yeah. And so, this is, it develops so beautifully, this conversation. I'm so amazed by it, is that we are not our thoughts. You are not your thoughts. You are not your story. You are not your past. You are not the label. You are not a thing. You are not a morning person. You are not an introvert. You are not a failure. You are not this. You are not that. Like all of those are things we unconsciously agreed to at some point. Those are labels, contracts. At some point, we unconsciously, without any bad intention, not knowingly, innocently, we agreed to. I'm a bad person. I'm this. I'm that. And we are none of those. And so the trick is, the trap is that it seems so real to us because we are in it. So the reason why this conversation is so important, because the way the the way we so the more we start to see, the truth that no story, all stories are made up, our thoughts are made up. The past is not equal to the future. The past doesn't really exist, right, other than in our mind. So when I'm judgmental with myself, right, sometimes I don't see it. Sometimes I don't see it, but when I'm see it, then I have awareness. And the equivalent, how I handle now an argument with my wife, the equivalent how I handle argument with myself is called forgiveness. And that's why probably the one most important practice we can do is forgiveness, because that cleans up the mess inside. And that's like cleaning up our house. It's not enough to clean up our house once a year, because if we do that, how our house will look like. We have to clean our house regularly. 1 second, this is important. So that's important. That's important, to clean our internal house, right? To have it as a practice. I am that I forgive gracefully and regularly for myself and everyone else, right? And if we would just do that, forgive, we would put down all of that baggage regularly, and that will do one very important thing for us. It opens us up to our potential. Our potential naturally going to grow when we just put down the baggage. And most of the baggage is self-judgment. Even when we judge others, deep down that's self-judgment too. So how am I forgiving myself and how am I forgiving others? They did this study where they measured the brain waves of monks. And they brought in monks who have been meditating for 40 years, and they tried to decipher what do they do and how do they get into that deep, like very high state. And then they brought in a woman who not even like or maybe a meditator, but not as much. And at some point they saw that the woman started to generate the same kind of brain waves as the monks. And they asked her, what do you do? What do you do? And she said, I just forgave my husband who cheated on me. I just finally forgave my husband who cheated on me. That's how powerful forgiveness it is. It clears the rubbish from our internal house. And then that gives space for new things. So I really encourage everyone to practice forgiveness for themselves and for others as well. Because when we hold grudges for others, it's a poison that we take. It doesn't make a difference for the other person whether we hate them while we walk on the street. While we walk on the street, the only person that will feel bad is us, not the other person. So who our grudge really poisoning? The other person or us? That's why we need the forgiveness, not the other person. Maybe the other person needs it too, by the way. You get my point.
And you don't need to hate anyone, even if you don't want to be together. It's just that you can forgive without have relationship to each other.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so common. I like in our family, my mother-in-law got cancer, and I believe it's because she couldn't forgive to her husband leaving her, and she got so bitter for 15 years that it, I believe, showed up in her body. But you know what? On her deathbed, I was there, she forgave, because it didn't matter anymore. It didn't matter anymore. And what I love about death is that it's truthful. It really shows what's true. Everything else, all the crap, just falls away. It's just not relevant in the face of death, just not relevant. And so it really showed that what is relevant in life is love. And that's that. And we can fool ourselves while we think about our challenges that, I'm a bad person because I failed, or I'm not getting this, or compared to that, I'm not measuring up, or all of these things. But all of those are the crap that are not important.
Our humanness.
Yes. What's important is to be loving to each other. Whenever I was close to someone who were dying, what mattered is the people around their bed. That's what mattered. And when I'm going to be at my deathbed, what's going to matter is people around me. And there is such a beauty in that, I find. There is such a beauty in that truth. And whenever I'm getting caught up of like how my business is doing, where I'm at, I'm comparing myself to this person, to that person, I got to remind myself what really matters in life.
Yeah, that's just a game, all this.
And there is an amazing audio. Did you hear that? There's an amazing audio which fits into this. I think it's by George Pransky. I really recommend it. One time I went through a time of depression. My coach sent this to me. I listened it like 6 times. If you want, I'm happy to send it to you. I will share it to Cecilia. She's happy to share it with you, like the listener. It's an amazing audio. And the title of the audio, The Game of Life versus Living Life. And so the distinction that George Pransky makes is that there is a game of life. The game of life is I'm a coach, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm a mother, or I'm a car salesman, or whatever. That's the game of I'm playing the game of a career. I'm playing a game of financials. I'm playing a game of reputation. I'm playing a game of living up to. I'm playing a game of all of these, right? That's the game of life. And there is a validity in playing the game of life, right? Without the game of life, there would be no incentive to grow. The reason games are great because it helps us grow. That's why every baby, every kid, human or animal, plays a lot because that's the best way to grow. And the more we can play in life, the more we're gonna grow. That's why the games are great for that. What it's not great to is to source our identity and mental health from that. So if I source my identity from how good I am in my coaching business, then I'm doomed to have bad periods, because the game of life doesn't go always up. Sometimes it goes down. And if I source my happiness from the game of life, sometimes I will be down, right? And the more I identify with it, the more I will be down. But that's just a misunderstanding. There is the living of life. Now, while the game of life that can change, the roles, am I now a father? Am I now a CEO? Am I now, I don't know, like a waiter? That can change. I can change roles. I can change careers. That can change, right? The game of life changes. The living of life, that's constant. We are living right now. That happens on its own. I don't need to do anything for the living of life to happen. It just happens, right? And there is immense power in that. That's where our innate mental health is, in the living of life. And George Prensky says this thing. It's like a like a like a digestion system of happiness. Some people have, from a scale to 10, for the sake of this example, some people have a bad digestion, a level 1 or 2 digestion. In this very moment, they don't get too much happiness out of this moment, right? Some people have a higher digestion, 8, 9. From this very moment, they have much more happiness out. And so that digestion can be improved. There is actually no end to that. There is infinite amount of happiness we can get out of every single moment, because it doesn't come from a thing. It just comes from living. So if we are not identified with what we do, if we see it as what it is, as a game, which is fun to play, sometimes up, sometimes down, it's a game. If we see it as that, we can really get our happiness from life. And that's what I got when I listened it 6 times, is that, wow, like I attach so much to my happiness of how I am currently in that moment of time in my business, and most importantly, how I am conceiving myself, how I'm seeing myself, right? What I saw, like, that is not important, right? It is important. It's a game. But it is a game. I thought that it is life. I mixed the two up. It is a game. That's a game. Great. We play it. I play it as good as I can because I love playing, because it's a nice thing to do. And that is living. We just have, and then we can be grateful. We can be loving towards ourselves, towards others, just because we're living. That happens, and that's what's important. And that's what death teaches us. Hey, this is living. This is what's important. That's important too, but just don't mix up the two. Know which one is which. That's a really good audio, and I really recommend reach out to Cecilia or me, and we're happy to share it with you, and even have a conversation about it to bring your learnings deeper.
Oh, lovely, Viktor. I love how you share. It comes from your heart.
Mm. only can be thanked to the amazing space that you create. You create such an aura of openness, and I think what's great about you is your humanness. Like that gives permission to me, and I only imagine that gives permission to your clients to be themselves. And when we are being ourselves, there is such an open exploration can happen of what's going on for us and what can be possible for us. And I see that as a unique gift. It's rare. Not everyone can be so open and so themselves. So what you got here, I see it as unique. You create openness by being you, by being human. And there's a huge power in that.
Thank you, Viktor. And I say the same to you, because we have this energy together in this room, and it's very calm and lovely. So thank you very much for coming and doing this session with me. I hope that people can rest in themselves and see it from the heart and not from all this intellectual mess in the head. So love to all. Thank
Love
you,
to you
Viktor.
all. Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you.